Welcome back to the Shabbos Treasures series. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, and I'm here together with my co-host,
Rabbi Samuel Ross, and we are delighted to be able to share a weekly idea that you can take into your Shabbos and upgrade and beautify immediately. Enjoy. We are now, believe it or not, at week 5. So the good news is that I believe that week 5 is far, far easier than week 3 or 4. Week 3 was Muksa. Week 4 was asking others to do work for us. 2 very, very hard topics. I don't think today is like dead easy, but I think it's significantly easy. Again, just in terms of structure, we've started with we're sort of using this book over here to go with. So we're starting with the rabbinic elements of Shabbos. And we've got another week or 2 or 3 perhaps, and then we're going to move into the 39 types of work. So we're going to continue on this week with another, actually a semi-rabbinic one, which is actually not entirely rabbinic, as we will see in a minute. But as I put on the group, we are going to start with the question for this week. Hopefully by the end we'll be able to answer it. Not an easy one. Go for it.
So we've spoken a little bit about how Shabbos is supposed to be a bit of a different day. So here's my dilemma. There is a big sale happening on Shabbat, and it's the winter and Shabbat goes out early. Can I get to the shop, the department store, like just before Shabbat ends, so that as soon as Shabbat is over, I can go in and go shopping?
Obviously, we're talking about walking there. We're going to be talking about, I don't know, there's no credit card, pocket, nothing muksa. We're going to deal with all the other issues. We're simply looking at, can you actually get that? Yeah.
Because my initial thought was about carrying money.
Okay, so you're good. So you wouldn't be able to do that. That for sure not. So we're going to have to come up with a theoretical case that somehow the store is going to give you credit. Again, after Shabbos, you're actually going in. There is no money.
It's all fine. He's going to bring the credit card later, but at least I'll be there and get the stuff.
I'm not enjoying this one actually so much anymore, this case. I prefer the harder ones from last week. Anyway.
It's quite an interesting one because I'm thinking of the intention of what you're doing.
Interesting.
But you're not breaking, you're not intending to do anything during Shabbos, but I'm thinking it's almost like preparing, so you can't prepare things during Shabbos for after Shabbos, and it's almost like the same thing.
Excellent. Before we even try and respond, Jeremy, what would you respond to Hayden?
I think Hayden's just hit the nail on the head. It doesn't seem like a very Shabbosy thing to do. You're thinking about purchasing things and getting a bargain, as opposed to having your mind on more ethereal, otherworldly matters.
Okay, that's fair enough. But let's be honest, do any of us spend the entire 25 hours, I don't care how religious we are, thinking about what we should, or maybe in God's eyes, some of the things that we think and talk about are quite trivial. It actually gets quite scary, you think about some of the conversations that go on. The question here is, let's say you were going on a walk. I'm allowed to go on a walk, and I sort of end up outside the department store. Nothing in my pocket. I don't say anything to anybody. Are we going to be okay with it? Okay, so that's what we're going to look at. Hayden is already analyzing that. Jeremy's looking at this from a very beautiful perspective of what Shabbos ideally could or should be. And Hayden's trying to think, it's interesting. He goes straight into lawyer mode. And because of course, Jeremy's the lawyer. And he starts straight away trying to piece it together. Is it tangible? Okay, so we're going to see in a couple of minutes how to come back to this. But this is really this is sort of where we're going to start from today. So what we're going to do is we're going to share with you a piece from the prophets. Okay.
All right. Does anyone want to read the English?
Yeah, sure. And you shall honor the Shabbos in your goings by refraining from pursuing your weekday occupations and from speaking of them.
All right, so I think we may have a hint to an answer there. What is the prophet telling us in this sentence, in this little sentence? He's saying something quite strong, actually.
And again, I want to add something else. You're being way too nice. Before we try and answer it based on this, we're going to make them sweat. We're first going to go through the principles, and then we're going to give them the answer. You're so nice. Maybe that's why I married you. Anyway, the point is, as Gilles asking, what do you, this is actually from Yeshaya. And this is one of the verses, actually one of the prophets speaking about Shabbos. So on the one hand, it's not fully biblical. It's going to, I guess, more rabbinic in nature, but maybe even a little bit above rabbinic. It's the prophets describing Shabbos. What do you see from this verse, or part of the verse?
I think it's interesting. Obviously, you refrain from doing your normal kind of weekday activities, but even from talking about them is quite interesting. Because, you know, I could see that you might, like, for example, I don't know, washing the dishes or needing to go buy something or get something repaired or whatever. You might, you know, say, well, you know, Monday or tomorrow we'll do this or whatever. And it's saying you shouldn't even talk about it. You need to just leave it behind you and focus completely on the Shabbos.
So what we've already seen from Hayden is the end of the verse. What else do we see?
Your goings, the pursuing your weekday occupations. Shopping is a weekday occupation, and shopping is comprised of driving to the shops, doing the shopping, and then coming home, which makes me think that in answer to the example, you are actually pursuing a weekday occupation because you've gone to the shops. That's the first part of shopping.
Right. So we're going to get to that in a minute, but I mean, I think you're onto it. I just want I think the two of you have caught on to two things. There's actually, which is number one, you're not supposed to do your regular weekday activity, right? So for example, if let's say I love window shopping, that's a weekday activity, as Jeremy said, and even though I'm not really doing anything wrong, it's not suitable for the Shabbos day, from what I'm saying. And as Hayden also pointed out, that not only are you not supposed to do it, you're not supposed to speak about it, but there's one actual thing that if you look very carefully, you might find there's like a third thing that is also telling us that has to be, that we honor Shabbos by doing something. And can you find what I'm talking about? And it's, the English translation is a bit awkward.
And just while you try and find it, and it's not just that it's awkward, you need the Gemara to explain what it means. So the third one is the hardest one. In terms of window shopping, I just want to say this in passing, you're not going to believe it, but in theory, there is a way that window shopping could actually be okay, because today it's become, and maybe not in England, but in North America at least, maybe in England as well, it's so normative that people like sort of do it as a pastime. You know, they're not going to buy, they're not even going to look at the prices. They sort of, oh, look at that. So that's exactly how I sound when I go shopping. Not. So the point is that it could actually be that in theory, believe it or not, the window shopping, if you weren't looking at weren't thinking about them, and you weren't saying why you're there, but you're just sort of passing by, it actually could be, believe it or not, that window shopping is one example that may just, again, do I love it? Do you love it? No, we don't love it, but it's something that actually could be okay. Anyway, what is the third one here? There is one other that we're missing.
The third one is your goings.
Okay.
So what does that mean? It's a bit of an awkward word, as I said.
It is actually. Is that like your actions, what you do? I'm thinking your comings and goings.
It is your comings and goings, which is, I guess, a bit of an old English way for saying.
Yes.
You're walking, right? The way we walk on Shabbos should be different than the way we walk during the week. Because on the week, if you think about it, most of the time we're rushing, right? We're rushing to get to work on time. We're rushing to get home on time. We're rushing to get the kids from their activity, remember where they are. We're rushing, you know, making appointments, etc. Whereas Shabbos is supposed to be different. We're not supposed to be rushing around like that. We're supposed to slow down. Our pace of walking on Shabbos is supposed to be different, which is a fascinating idea, really, and you know, it's a relatively easy way to honor the Shabbos, but on Shabbos is, you know, if you just say, I'm going to slow down a little bit, my walk is going to be different.
Okay, good. Okay. What we're going to do now is actually we're going to show you another screenshot, which I actually took straight from this book. I know Jeremy has it, I know Guy has it. And basically, you're going to see that there are three different, should be already in front of you, that from the words of the prophet, we learn three different categories here. Three different categories that we wouldn't have known from the Torah itself necessarily, but they are all different elements of things that we can't do on Shabbos, and all based on this pasuk. So the first one is the idea, as Hayden said, of the going. The truth is the Gemara expounds exactly what it means, but it's referring to, I think Gila said it really beautifully, the idea of, you know, the regular hustle and bustle. You know, I think Jeremy was alluding to it earlier before as well, the sort of life, you know, going around. So on Shabbos, it should be different. Our manner of walking and movement is going to be different on Shabbos, which in this particular case, let's use some real examples as we go through. So the real examples of this will be that we're not supposed to run on Shabbos. Exercise is also gone. Because it's based on this verse, based on the hiluchecha, the walking element of it, we're not supposed to be running, and exercise could be other issues with as well. We'll see later on, but running and exercise and things like that are out. Obviously, walking, hiking, things like that are fine. And let's say, you know, how far does this go? Let's say your kids, or even you, you know, you enjoy jumping. You know, you got a kid who likes jumping on their head and standing on their head, or stuff like that. It's fine as well. You know, they're doing it for an element of enjoyment of Shabbos. But the concept, the principle is there, that when it comes to Shabbos, our walking, you know, our goings, as Hayden put it, should be different to during the week. If anyone's got questions as we're going through, feel free to ask it. Now we're going to go on to the next two, which next one was something that Jeremy came to. Chefzucha, which is weekday occupations, weekday activities. So
just on the goings, is that derechecha? Is that presumably is a better definition your ways, or the roads? Of course, derech meaning way or
good. But again, you need the Gemara who expounds exactly what this verse means. That's the way that we have the oral and the written tradition, is that the written and the oral sort of come together. But so we're talking about the ways. Okay, good. Again, literally, it might be referring more to the walking. Okay, the second one is going to be the weekday occupations, and Jeremy spoke about this one already. So let's give examples. Let's say, so we understand that you're not going to work. Okay, good, you're not going to work. That's out. But what about things like there's no actual one of the 39 types of work forbidden involved. So let's say just discussing business. You know, what's wrong with discussing the stocks, or reading business news, or maybe walking around a shopping mall? You know, something you never would have thought of. I remember many, many years ago when we were in Canada, there was a Shabbaton that was actually in a shopping mall. There was the biggest one in North America, maybe even in the world, and we had like a hotel there adjoined to it. So, you know, you could easily just walk straight into the mall. It was there. Could we sort of walk around on Shabbos? You know, you got all these different elements, but things like, can you read business news, and so on and so forth. So all of that stuff is going to be included under, and Jeremy spoke about this before, we take ourselves away from our weekday occupations and affairs. So, you know, you got things like your business. So even though we're not actually violating any of the 39, we're not discussing business. And I think business is going to be the biggest one that comes under, or anything business related, shopping related, and so on and so forth is going to come under this. Finally, V'dabar Dover. Okay, so V'dabar Dover is referring to speech, as Hayden got to straight away. So what does speech mean? So there is an overlap on some level with two. You could easily do 2 and 3 together. So when you start, again, I think Hayden's example was speaking about doing work after Shabbos. But I guess if you spoke about business, I guess, you know, it's an element of what you use your mouth for.
And a very common way it comes up is like when you meet someone and you kind of network with them, like, you do X, Y, Z, you know, like, and you're looking for that particular thing. Oh, you're a photographer. I'm looking for a family photo shoot. Like that's sort of a very common way where it kind of comes up.
Excellent example. I guess other examples where it comes up is if you say, you know, I need to drive to work tonight. That's a problem. You could say, I need to go out tonight, but to say how you're getting there is an issue. Or to discuss any one of the 39 works. I am going to, I don't know, polish my shoes later, or I am going to write a letter, whatever it is. So that's included under the Davadavra. So again, so far we've seen there are 3 basic things which we've learned today. That walking, in contrast to things like running and jogging. We don't start discussing business, things like that, looking at the Financial Times. And then what we say, we're not using our mouth to discuss work, or even to discuss to discuss any of the forbidden works afterwards, or even to discuss preparation for afterwards. So that's the beginning. Okay, so if I would ask you the question now that Gila asked, which was, what was the question? Remind me.
Can I go to the shops before Shabbos so that I'm there as soon as Shabbos ends to get in?
So it's a good question, and I'm still quite scared because apparently it's my credit card. But if we were just looking at this, it would seemingly be a problem. So like in the other sessions, what we're going to do now for the next 2 or 3 minutes is we're going to share with you the 2 or 3 occasions when you don't have to worry about these things. Okay?
Yeah.
Sure. We're going to stop share. So this is when you don't have to worry about these things. Number 1, when it's for the sake of a mitzvah. Now let me give you an example, or you can give me an example. For the sake of a mitzvah. So let's look at the one of running. When would running be for the sake of a mitzvah?
To help someone.
To help someone, to go to shul, to run to a Shabbos. So let's say you're going to be late for shul, or to run, someone needs help. Not a problem. What about talking? When could it be an example that a mitzvah will involve talking that normally you wouldn't do? Again, normally we won't discuss business or money. When could we maybe discuss money?
For tzedakah.
Oh, thanks. Beautiful. So it's something like tzedakah. So and indeed, many shuls do that. That they might sell the mitzvahs, sell the aliyahs or whatever it is. The equivalent. Or if you realize that your kid needs extra help with their chumash homework, and you find someone in the street who might be a good teacher, and that's the time to discuss it with them. You shouldn't finalize these deals, but that's something that is allowed. Okay, so that's for the sake of a mitzvah. The other time when it's not forbidden, and this is I think a lot hinges on this one, and it's when it's not self-evident as to why you're doing it. Because again, remember, this is not something biblical. This is something based on the prophets that was set up to get away from, sort of not being your regular self on Shabbos. So what about if something is not self-evident? So let's give a couple of examples. Okay, you can give a couple of examples. When could we walk somewhere when it's not self-evident? What would be an example?
So if, let's say, the shop is near places where people walk, could I walk there?
That's a good question.
If, let's say, I have friends nearby, or I'm just happen to go for a walk with someone else.
So
or even let's say you're walking somewhere and you walk past a shop. That, I'm guessing that doesn't make any difference. If you walked past the shop and looked in the window.
Seemingly that's fine. Again, so let's give a contrast. I don't think that you would walk to a bus stop and stand under the bus stop, because that looks like you're looking for the bus. But if you were to sort of circle around or something like that, and be near a bus stop, I think that would be okay, even though you're catching the bus after Shabbos. As long as it's not evident, as long as you don't say why you're doing it, and there could be another explanation, in these regards, not in normal work, but in these regards, the regard of walking.
Sorry, it's not evident to others.
Yeah, it's not evident to others. Again, God knows, but that's not the issue. This is not something that God has mandated. This is something that the prophets mandated, where under usual circumstances, unless it's either for the sake of a mitzvah or if it's not evident. So again, another example.
What about if I'm talking to someone who's doing something that I'm interested in, but I'm just asking in conversation? I'm saying, oh, that's what you do. You're a photographer. Tell me more about what you do, whatever. And I'm not actually saying, that I'm looking for a photographer. Maybe I'm just being friendly. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm being friendly.
Yeah. But then you're talking about their normal.
See, I would say that's okay.
What?
I don't know.
But we do that sometimes in social settings, Jeremy. Like we do make conversation about work and stuff. So is that okay?
I think
we've got the rabbi here. Ask the rabbi.
I think it is a fine point that, again, if it's their profession and it's going to start getting into a business talk, then I think that is a serious issue. I definitely wouldn't start doing that. But if you're going to start a conversation which might just be interesting and it's not leading towards business, then you quite possibly could do that. But let's give another example, one that you would never think of. So you're not under Mimsat Chefsecha, your weekday activities and forbidden works. So you're not going to go to if you're renovating your house. So you shouldn't go and look at your house of Shabbos because it's like, the roof needs to get done, and then the wife wants the bathroom done in a certain type of way. Or another example, you shouldn't walk out to your garden to start staring and talking about your plants, how they need to be pruned or whatever, because it's forbidden work. But what you could do is you could go for a walk and happen to walk past the house. You could go for a walk around a garden without talking about what the plants are needed and happen to have a look at it. So as long in these regards, in either the regard of the walking somewhere, being near a business type of thing, but it's not self-evident. And what was the third example was about? I think it was about talking, right? Again, the third example was about talking. As long as it's not self-evident, talking's a little bit harder because once you're mentioning work, the talking part is hard because usually it's sort of leading somewhere. But for you to walk somewhere, to walk past somewhere, or something like that, or to say I'm going somewhere after Shabbos without mentioning that you're getting in a plane or getting in the train or whatever it is, it's not self-evident how you're necessarily getting there. So that is going to be okay. Okay, so again, before we get to the first question, we're going to finish with this. We've seen that the things which are not okay are there's three things that are not okay. The first thing is to run, to jog, to exercise. The second thing that's not okay is to do your business in a non-business way, to read the Financial Times, to start getting into business conversations. The third one is actual speech about business or speech about preparation for work. Those are the three. Those three are okay if either it's for the sake of a mitzvah or if it's not self-evident as to why you're doing it. So now going back to our very first question. Drum roll. Again, let's go through the exact case. Apparently, this is more on the wife's side than the husband's side, but let's leave that aside. The wife...
Not me, I hate shopping.
Yeah, actually not you. The wife, someone, I don't know, wants this, can't afford to miss the sale. Is she allowed to walk from your home to the department store, to the shopping center? On Shabbos, granted she's not going to carry, and granted she's going to walk. Under what circumstances are there any that she could go there?
Okay, the self-evident part is very. There are difficulties there because it's going to be evident to me that I was going in the neighbourhood in order to speak to one of my friends who happens to live nearby the shop. So I'm going to talk to her as a secondary intention of my primary intention, which is. But
that's still in these circumstances, Jeremy. In these circumstances, it's still okay, because unless the intention is clear that you're standing outside the shop, standing there, even if you don't have a friend there, but you're going for a walk, you happen to be going for a walk and it happens to be nearby. As long as you're not standing, so you're standing around the corner. I'm not telling you should do this. I'm just telling you, once you understand what the cutoff is, that it's about being self-evident, you could go for a walk and happen to be near someone in the Shabbos. What you can't do is you can't speak as to why you're doing it. You can't start telling your family at home, I'm going to be outside. Maybe you could discuss it before Shabbos. You can't discuss it on Shabbos. But if you happen to go for a walk.
And surely it's also different. Like, for example, if you're going to the Arndale Centre, right, and you're standing in Market Street, like, that's evident that you're there for shopping, right? Like, is there another reason why people go there? Whereas if, let's say, you're standing outside a shop that's, in a residential area, or you're standing, in Jeremy's case, where you've got a friend nearby and you're maybe chatting to your friend, and then 5 minutes later you walk there, then it is less self-evident.
Yeah. So I don't think you have to prove I think it's a good point. I think you have to prove that I've got a friend here. I just think, the fact that I'm not standing outside the shop, I'm standing around the corner and I happen to be allowed to be there, going for a walk. I don't think it's an issue. Granted, you can't carry credit cards and, stuff like that. Okay, good. One very, very final point before you put down, a positive element of this mitzvah is there is brought down that there is a mitzvah on Shabbos. It's a beautiful thing that to even acknowledge other people, greet other people with a Shabbos type of greeting. So it's brought down, like instead of saying good morning or good evening, to say good Shabbos or Shabbat Shalom or whatever the case is. So that's something that's actually brought down. So that when you speak about the speaking element of it, so you can definitely accomplish that positive element
And
as well.
again, it's such an easy mitzvah to take on Shabbos. Is in the morning, or in the evening, instead of saying good night, you say Shabbat Shalom, and in the morning you say Shabbat Shalom again, and it's just a small way to honor Shabbos.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, guys.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. That's really useful.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can get in touch with me. I'm on Instagram at itsgilaross. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.